If there's anywhere we've been deceived in our own lives or where we have been deceiving others, the truth will likely be very hard to hide this week and moving through really the rest of Pluto retrograde until October 16th of 2026. The reason for that is that we have Mercury, Hermes, the messenger god, just a couple days ago on the 5th of May, squaring Pluto in Aquarius, where secrets and what is really difficult to see and often buried in the revolutionary, change-oriented, fixed air sign of Aquarius just one day before Pluto stationed retrograde, bringing up out of that fixed, stagnant, solid Aquarian place deep psychic muck and defenses that might have been really hard to change or difficult to see. Those are all going to come up to our awareness as Pluto in retrograde station provides a revisioning, a reevaluation, and a dismantling and an excavation of what we've been trying to hide or what others have been keeping from us. What is especially going to provide a confrontation either in ourselves, within psychically, or with others around the truth, around betrayal trauma, and the defenses that have maybe kept us from seeing clearly, is the fact that today, Thursday, May 7th, baked into this Pluto retrograde is the Goddess Pallas Athena in Aries making a direct conjunction with Neptune in Aries. And at the same time, Mercury, information and the mind, in Taurus, fixed Earth, also doesn't want to change, is squaring the goddess asteroid Juno in Aquarius. So what all that means is that Athena, representing our intuition, wisdom, courage, the capacity to see in the dark, and its fusion to Neptune, where fear, illusion, delusion, and confusion can present themselves in its lower octave, finds that strength to free ourselves from fear, from those fear-based old coping strategies through trusting our intuition, providing clarity, sudden clarity, awareness, and insight, and the capacity to actually break free of illusion and self-deception. Hi, I'm Amy Rose White. I'm an integrative psychotherapist and astrologer making videos on concrete healing tools for astrological transits. Thank you so much for subscribing, for liking, checking out my free resources on my website linked below. And in this video today, I'm going to give you 3 very concrete tools to use to really address the ways that we may be being lied to, acting out of integrity, and living a lie in our own regard. The time for that to end is really now. So one of the reasons that the subject of betrayal trauma and betrayal blindness is heightened right now, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment, is also that Mercury is squaring that Juno. And remember that Juno is Jupiter's wife, who was essentially unhappily partnered, devoted and committed, yes, but with a philandering god. So although many astrologers tend to look at her in the natal chart or by transit and talk about marriage, commitment, and devotion, and maybe this is the fact that I have Pluto on my moon and Mercury conjunct in Libra, I tend to see the capacity to face and unearth psychic defense structure like betrayal blindness. So what's betrayal blindness, you may be asking? It is an intrapsychic defense mechanism, and it's a type of disassociation that occurs when the threat of losing connection is so great that the psyche essentially protects us from accurately seeing the reality of a person or circumstance. And this is considered a type of psychogenic amnesia, actually, where we forget selectively or we simply turn a blind eye, but it's not actually conscious. And our psyche does this to protect us from overwhelming pain and to preserve that connection because the loss of that is perceived as too threatening to our nervous system. We can experience betrayal trauma with institutions that fail to prevent harm, they fail to protect us, they fail to repair, such as in medicine, law, the military, the police force, and of course in any interpersonal connection where betrayal trauma is most commonly thought of as being related to an affair or infidelity, a secret addiction to a substance, maybe friends violating boundaries. And what can be part of all those things, and it's one of the most disturbing manifestations, is actually discovering that someone that we once trusted and loved and thought they loved us has actually been leading a complete double life. Or perhaps we are on the end of enacting a betrayal trauma and someone has a trust in us that we are stepping over in ways they had no idea about. So betrayal trauma is essentially the discovery and unearthing of such information. And that material is usually a very overwhelming event and requires a lot of processing and healing and various kinds of modalities to recover from, because it's so destabilizing to our sense of reality. And we're experiencing that in the collective, aren't we already? This is going to continue to exacerbate and manifest in our individual relationships as well. And for that reason, because these other planetary aspects are baking into the Pluto retrograde, I suspect, and I'm actually seeing actively in my client practice right now, that this Pluto retrograde may really be a reckoning with where we've been lying to ourselves and others about core fundamental aspects of our feelings, of our needs, our desires, and what we're actually doing behaviorally in our lives. So it's my experience and belief that when a transit activates the removal or the revelation of a psychic defense structure like betrayal blindness, just not seeing what may be actually very obvious to other people, or maybe there were clues and red flags all along, but we just didn't want to or have the capacity to see them. When a transit kicks that up, it is because I believe this is because our soul, and along the karmic journey, the place that we're, bopping along on our own karmic journey in this incarnation, we are ready. I almost said ready, willing, and able. We don't always feel willing, but I observe that we are ready and able when that material comes to light. And that might be that a secret that you've been keeping or we've been keeping suddenly is revealed. I've noticed that people who harbor secrets such as affairs or a gambling addiction their spouse doesn't know about, or a secret family or something like that, or there's a part of the psyche that is really burdened by holding that secret, that actually in a way wants to be discovered. And I would imagine some of you can understand that feeling or have witnessed that. Please let us know in the comments below. And regardless of whether you're on the giving or the receiving end of the betrayal, know that this is how it is meant to unfold, to actually activate and support our evolution towards deeper levels of consciousness, awareness, and love for ourselves, each other, and our earth. That just happens to be my spiritual belief. That's why I think astrology can be so helpful, because it helps us make sense of really, really challenging times in our lives that are almost always activated by outer planet transits. And I have found that the placements of the asteroids also are extremely accurate with predictive analysis. So it's a time of instability when we recognize that our fear of facing the truth has been driving us. And a lot of us that find ourselves, let's say you're on the receiving end of betrayal trauma, have grown up in systems where that was an active defense strategy modeled by one or both of our parents or other caregivers. And we learned that this sort of psychogenic amnesia, or pretending as if something's not happening, even though maybe everyone kind of knows that it is just the norm. Like it's the water you're swimming in, if you're the fish, so you don't know that you're wet, so to speak. And unfortunately, what that does is it makes us very vulnerable to finding ourselves later in life in relationships with friends, coworkers, lovers, spouses, etc., that might be inclined to engage in dishonest behavior, because it's almost like we have a neon sign on our forehead saying, pick me, I'm gullible. Not because we're stupid, not at all, but because that radar is almost turned off from a neurobiological level. It's literally harder to detect. Betrayal blindness is not just a colloquialism. It's actually a neurobiological process where areas involved in the brain related to memory are not as activated. They're not storing the information, and we can't access the information, for example, recall as well as we could outside times of stress or outside systems where betrayal is just kind of part and parcel of it. Unfortunately, this happens in lots of systems where we see incest and other forms of abuse or any kind of psychological, emotional violence. Really, any type of boundary violation tends to result in some level of this psychogenic amnesia or betrayal blindness. So if you're seeing this in the lives of people you care about, if it's getting kicked up in your own life, if you're forced to confront the truth of someone, of yourself, of a matter, know that these particular archetypal symbols are supporting you. For Juno, that can be commitment to self leadership, commitment and devotion to self-love, and knowing that we are worthy of being told the truth. We are worthy of being transparent in transparent dynamics with people. We are supported by the archetypal symbolism of Pallas Athena, who encourages us to trust our own deep intuition, who allows us to actually see what cannot be seen in the dark, to allow us to be our own oracle, our own diviner. That's what astrology is anyway. It's a divining system, much like the tarot. And we can thank Mercury, the messenger, squaring Pluto in Aquarius earlier this week for forcing the information at hand. That's what that 90-degree angle does. It brings things to light in our minds, psychic awareness, information, a text, an email, the thing that you were meant to find, to be unearthed, to come clean with, to be caught around. This is all divinely timed, and the strength of those archetypes is with us to see ourselves and the people we love through these challenging transits in time. So your meditation and reflection for this transit is, where have I been avoiding the truth? The mirror work that I invite you to do, to look into your own left eye, deep breath, tall body posture, kind eyes only. I trust you to handle the reality that is revealed. And your mantra for this transit, I live in integrity and personal power. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to all of my new subscribers. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Be sure and check out my website and its free resources. See these videos above, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.